Hey guys, tonight we step into a world that feels both utterly alien and breathtakingly raw, the Arctic twilight wrapping itself around you like a giant icy cloak. Imagine your breath freezing mid-air, the sky a bruised purple, fading slowly into a deep, endless blue. The silence isn't just quiet, it's a thick, heavy kind that presses in on your ears, broken only by the crunch of your boots on frozen snow and the occasional distant call of a reindeer. This isn't your cozy bedroom, or your favourite couch with a warm blanket. No, this is a place where every step could be your last, and you probably won't survive this night without the knowledge of those who have lived here for centuries, the Sámi reindeer herders. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and don't forget to drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious if you're tuning in from a tropical beach or somewhere as cold as this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing at the edge of an Arctic wilderness where the sun has dipped below the horizon, surrendering the land to a long, endless night that will stretch for weeks. You're in the traditional territories of the Sámi, Indigenous people known for their profound relationship with the land and their herds of reindeer. The cold gnaws at your face, and your fingers start to stiffen despite the layers wrapped around you. The wind whistles a haunting melody through the skeletal branches of stunted trees, sounding almost like a warning. Historians still argue whether the Sámi migrated to this region as a distinct group around 2,000 years ago, or evolved here gradually, adapting to the harsh conditions. Either way, their story is one of extraordinary endurance and symbiosis with the Arctic environment. It's a narrative written not in ink but in the tracks left by reindeer hooves and the smoke from lavu tents. A story that you're about to become a very small part of. The land itself seems to hold its breath. Snow blankets the rolling hills and frozen lakes, glinting faintly under the pale light of a waning moon. It's beautiful but brutal, a reminder that this night isn't just dark, it's dangerous. Without proper knowledge and preparation, travellers can easily lose their way, fall through thin ice or freeze to death. You catch yourself wondering how the Sámi managed to thrive here, not just survive. You're about to find out. You trudge forward, your boots sinking slightly into the crunchy snow as you approach a small cluster of flickering fires. Here, the Sámi reindeer herders wait, wrapped in thick woolen gakti robes that flap gently in the cold wind. Their faces are weathered but kind, eyes sharp from years spent reading the land and sky. You probably look like an awkward tourist lost in the wilderness, but these folks move with a quiet confidence born from centuries of tradition. The herders greet you with a nod and a murmured bures, the Sámi word for hello, a sound that feels like a small gift in the silence. They don't waste time with small talk. They know the night is long and the Arctic doesn't wait. You follow their lead, learning that every gesture, every tool and every word has meaning when you're working with reindeer under a sky that can swallow you whole. Reindeer aren't just animals here, they're family, transportation, food, and even a spiritual connection to the land. You watch as one herder expertly adjusts a harness, preparing the reindeer for the trek ahead. These creatures have thick fur and wide hooves, perfect adaptations for stomping through snow and ice. They're like the original all-terrain vehicles, but way cuter and fluffier. One quirky tidbit you overhear is that some Sámi believe reindeer can sense the weather better than any barometer. When the animals start acting restless or nibbling at the snow in strange ways, it's a signal that a storm might be coming. It's not just superstition. This observation comes from centuries of watching nature's subtle cues. Scientists today are interested in how animals perceive changes in atmospheric pressure, but historians still argue whether this traditional knowledge should be classified as folklore or early meteorology. You realise quickly that the herders' bond with their reindeer goes far beyond utility. The animals are sometimes given names, treated with deep respect, and cared for like members of an extended family. This respect is not just sentimental, it's practical. A well-cared-for reindeer is more reliable, more resilient, and ultimately key to survival in this relentless environment. You also notice that the Sámi are constantly communicating, some with hushed words, others with soft whistles that the reindeer seem to understand perfectly. It feels like a secret language, a code you don't yet speak but are desperate to learn. The trust between herder and reindeer is mutual and profound. It's a dance perfected through generations. As night tightens its grip, you can't help but admire the simplicity and complexity coexisting here. The herders live on the edge of the world, yet their lives are deeply interconnected with the animals and landscape around them. You think about how, back home, your biggest survival challenge might be finding your keys, and you chuckle softly to yourself. This is a whole other level. The wind picks up, rattling loose snow from tree branches, and the lead herder gestures for you to help load the sled. You can feel the weight of responsibility settling on your shoulders, as if the cold itself is reminding you. This isn't a game. But you're in, whether you're ready or not. You move closer, feeling the cold seep deeper despite your layers, as the herders begin their evening rituals. The language they speak shifts seamlessly between Northern Sámi and Norwegian, or Swedish, depending on the region, reminders of centuries of cultural blending and resistance. The Sámi have clung fiercely to their language and traditions, even as outside forces pressured them to assimilate. It's a survival tactic as vital as any fur coat. Sámi culture isn't just about enduring the cold, it's about embracing a worldview where nature, animals, and humans are intertwined. You notice small talismans hanging from sleds and tents, carvings of bears, reindeer antlers, and symbols representing the sun. These aren't mere decorations, they're spiritual anchors. The Sámi believe the world is alive with spirits, and showing respect keeps those spirits content. You recall how many indigenous cultures have similar beliefs. Everything around them is part of a greater web of life. Historically, the Sámi have faced relentless pressure from governments and missionaries aiming to erase their identity. Up until the early 20th century, policies actively suppressed their language and customs. Yet, despite attempts to assimilate them into dominant Scandinavian societies, the Sámi persisted. Historians still argue whether this resilience came primarily from isolated geography or a unique communal spirit that refused to break. Tonight you witness a small ceremony as the herders bless the sleds and animals, murmuring prayers that sound like ancient chants. It's not a performance. It's a vital tradition passed down through generations, a way to honour the forces that govern the unforgiving Arctic environment. You can't help but feel the weight of history pressing down alongside the cold air. A quirky detail you overhear is that the Sámi have their own calendar, divided into 8 seasons instead of 4. This calendar isn't just poetic, it's practical, marking the subtle shifts in weather, animal behaviour, and daylight crucial for survival. You think about your digital calendar back home, reminding you of dentist appointments and streaming premieres, and it feels comically out of sync with this primal, earth-tuned rhythm. You also learn that storytelling plays a crucial role here, not just for entertainment, but as a means of education and cultural preservation. Elders recount sagas of giants, spirits, and heroic hunters, weaving lessons about respect for the land and its creatures into their tales. You wonder if your favourite bedtime stories would hold up in this icy reality. The herders share simple meals around a flickering fire, dried fish, flatbread, and some smoked meat. You taste the rugged flavour of a culture that relies on what the land provides, nothing wasted, nothing frivolous. There's a quiet dignity here, a contrast to the noisy chaos of modern life. As you absorb these fragments of Sámi life, you realise how much of their culture is a dance between past and present, tradition and change, spirit and survival. It's a delicate balance, like walking a narrow ridge on a mountainside with snow ready to tumble. You brace yourself for what comes next. The night is deepening, and the Arctic wilderness isn't slowing down for anyone. You watch as the herders prepare the reindeer for the coming night, their hands steady despite the biting cold. The animals are more than just beasts of burden. They are the lifeblood of this entire way of life. Reindeer provide transportation across the frozen expanse, food to nourish bodies worn thin by the cold, and materials for clothing and shelter. It's no exaggeration to say that without reindeer, survival here would be nearly impossible. The herders carefully inspect the animals' hooves and antlers, ensuring they're ready for the icy roads ahead. Reindeer hooves are marvels of natural engineering, wide and sharp-edged in winter to grip ice and packed snow, then shrinking and softening in summer to tread soft tundra without damage. You might think of them as the Arctic's all-terrain vehicles, equipped with their own built-in snow tyres. Interestingly, some Sámi herders believe that reindeer have a kind of sixth sense, a subtle ability to detect changes in weather and landscape that humans can't perceive. There's a story you overhear about a herd that suddenly refused to cross a certain patch of ice, which later cracked under a sled. Scientists today are intrigued by animal behavior in extreme environments, but historians still argue whether traditional observations like this count as scientific knowledge or cultural lore. As you stand near the animals, you notice the deep bond between herders and reindeer. It's not just practical, it's almost spiritual. The Sámi see reindeer as messengers between the human world and the spirit world. Some herders even name their animals, treating them with care and respect that goes beyond what most would expect for livestock. You wonder how many pet owners would trade the antics of a hyperactive dog for the quiet dignity of a reindeer. You also learn about the complex system of herding and migration. Reindeer don't just wander aimlessly. They follow established routes shaped by the seasons, weather, and the landscape itself. The herders know these paths intimately, using their knowledge to guide the animals safely through snowstorms, over frozen rivers, and around predators. It's a relationship built on trust, patience, and shared endurance. One quirky fact you stumble upon is that reindeer eyes actually change colour with the seasons, shifting from gold in summer to a deep blue in winter to help them see better in low light. Nature's own pair of sunglasses, if you will. It's little details like this that remind you how perfectly adapted these creatures are to one of the harshest climates on Earth. As the night presses in, you feel the weight of how essential these animals are, not just for survival, but for the survival of a culture. The Sámi's way of life is inseparable from the rhythm of the reindeer herds, and tonight you're right in the middle of that living, breathing connection. The sun is long gone now, and the Arctic night deepens around you like an ocean of ink. You watch the herders methodically preparing for the night ahead, checking harnesses, arranging sleds, and wrapping bundles with practiced ease. There's a rhythm to their movements, calm but urgent, and knowing that the hours of darkness demand every bit of readiness. You realize that in this frozen world, preparation is everything. A forgotten glove, a loose knot, or a weak sled runner can mean disaster once the temperature plunges and the ice beneath your feet begins to whisper threats. The herders move with a quiet confidence born from decades of experience, each step deliberate and precise. You try to mimic them, fumbling with straps and buckles, but it's clear you're still an outsider in this dance. Every detail counts. They check the ropes and pulleys that will pull the sleds, adjusting tension to ensure smooth gliding over uneven ice and packed snow. The reindeer shift impatiently, sensing the impending journey. You help load supplies, bundles of dried meat, reindeer hides, wooden tools wrapped carefully in waterproof cloths. The cold seems to settle more heavily with each passing minute. You notice the layers of clothing the herders wear, a mix of traditional gakti and modern thermal gear. The gakti, made from reindeer leather and wool, is surprisingly effective, designed to keep the body warm without overheating. Historians still argue whether the modern gear has improved survival rates, or if it risks disconnecting the Sámi from their ancestral wisdom about dressing for the Arctic's moods. Around you, the smell of burning wood and smoked meat mingles with the crisp air. Fire is a fragile friend here, vital for warmth and cooking, but easily extinguished by sudden gusts. The herders set up small, wind-sheltered fires near their lavu tents, the cone-shaped dwellings made from wooden poles and reindeer skins. The lavu is a marvel of design, quick to pitch and surprisingly warm, its smoke hole allowing hearth fire smoke to escape without chilling the occupants. You're handed a cup of warm tea brewed from local herbs, a bittersweet smoky flavour that warms your throat. The night sounds press close, the crackling fire, the low murmur of the herders' voices, the distant pouring of reindeer. It's peaceful but tense, like the calm before a storm. You learn a quirky tidbit. The Sámi traditionally used moss and lichen, gathered carefully in summer, as natural insulation both in clothing and inside their tents. These natural materials trap heat and moisture, an ancient technology that modern science has only recently begun to appreciate. You chuckle at how we pay big money for synthetic insulations, while here, centuries-old forest floor offerings do the job perfectly. As the preparations conclude, you feel the night's weight settle on your shoulders, a reminder that once you're out on the icy roads, there's no turning back. Every breath steams in the cold air, every sound seems amplified. Sleep is a trap here. The night is a challenge you have to meet awake, alert, and ready. You step onto the ice, and immediately the cold bites through the thick soles of your boots. The surface is slick, a shimmering sheet that reflects the pale moonlight like a giant cracked mirror. Your footing is unsure at first, each step tentative as you test the ice's grip beneath your weight. The Sámi herders move effortlessly, their boots and sled runners whispering secrets to the frozen lake, reading the subtle textures invisible to your eyes. The Arctic night is merciless here. One wrong step can send you sprawling or worse, breaking through thin ice into the frigid water below. You learn quickly that not all ice is created equal. Some patches are thick and reliable, others deceptive, hidden pockets of weak ice or even thin snow hiding treacherous cracks. The herders use long poles to probe the ice ahead, tapping and listening for echoes that tell stories of its strength. You realise that icy roads in the Arctic aren't roads at all, but natural pathways shaped by seasonal freeze and thaw. The Sámi rely on these frozen routes to travel, hunt, and move their herds. These roads can stretch for miles over frozen lakes, rivers, and marshes. The alternative, dense forest or treacherous mountain terrain, is far more dangerous and slow. There's a quirky tradition you learn about the ice angels. The herders sometimes draw with their sled poles on safe stretches, almost like a silent prayer or a way to mark a good spot. It's a small comfort in a vast and unforgiving landscape. You wonder if it really helps, or if it's just human nature to leave a mark in a place that feels indifferent to your existence. Historians still argue whether the use of these ice routes dates back thousands of years, or is a relatively recent innovation born of necessity as climate and land use changed. What's clear is that they're crucial lifelines in the winter, transforming frozen water bodies into highways and shortcuts that save time and energy. You notice your breath fogs in front of you, and the cold starts to seep into your joints, slowing your movements. The reindeer sled creaks softly as it slides behind the team, and you grip the runners, trying to steady your nerves. The path ahead is narrow and winding, bordered by snowdrifts that hide rocks and tree stumps like silent traps. The wind picks up, carrying icy shards that sting your cheeks and make your eyes water. Darkness is complete, swallowing the world except for the faint glow of the stars and the occasional flash of distant auroras. You feel exposed, like a small creature in a vast, indifferent wilderness. Despite the dangers, you can't help but feel a thrill, a mix of fear and exhilaration that comes from testing yourself in an environment so brutally honest. You remind yourself that the Sámi have been doing this for centuries, mastering the art of moving over ice that can turn deadly without warning. Every step is a lesson, every crack a warning. Sleep is not an option on these icy roads. Survival demands constant awareness, steady hands, and a heart willing to keep beating no matter what the night throws at you. You keep moving, the cold now a constant companion gnawing at your skin beneath every layer. The frozen landscape stretches endlessly, a white desert punctuated by skeletal trees and distant hills. Your fingers, despite gloves, start to stiffen, and every breath feels like inhaling shards of ice. The Sámi herders seem unfazed, their faces calm and focused, eyes scanning the darkness as if they could see through it. You learn that they rely heavily on reading the night sky, something that, until recently, few outsiders fully appreciated. The stars here aren't just pretty dots, they're a navigation system, a celestial map etched into the Arctic canvas. The northern lights, or aurora borealis, dance above like ethereal curtains, sometimes vibrant green, sometimes soft pink or purple. Their unpredictable movements can be mesmerizing or downright disorienting if you don't know what to look for. Interestingly, some Sámi traditions hold that the aurora is more than just light. It's a spirit presence, a connection to ancestors, or a sign of nature's moods. You catch yourself wondering if watching these lights for centuries has shaped the Sámi's deep spiritual connection to the land. Historians still argue whether the tales about the aurora's meaning developed before or after contact with Scandinavian Christian missionaries. You glance around and notice a faint glow on the horizon, small fires where other herding groups have made camp. The Arctic night is vast, but the Sámi maintain a network of camps and meeting points. These aren't just practical spots for rest, they're social hubs where stories are shared, supplies exchanged, and traditions passed along. You realise that isolation in this environment is relative. No one is truly alone out here. As you trudge on, your mind drifts to the sheer scale of the herding territory. Sámi families often migrate hundreds of kilometres between winter and summer pastures, following the reindeer's seasonal patterns. This migration isn't a random wander, it's a carefully timed journey woven into the natural rhythms of the land and animals. You think about how modern transportation makes us forget the patience and endurance required to move across such landscapes. The herders don't just endure the cold, they flow with it, adapting their pace and plans according to weather, animal behaviour and terrain. The wind carries a faint musky scent, a mix of reindeer, wood smoke, and the sharp tang of frozen earth. It's raw and elemental, a smell that sticks with you long after you leave the Arctic behind. You realise that smells, sounds and textures here are just as important as sight in navigating and surviving the night. You start to appreciate why sleep is such a trap in this environment. The slightest lapse in awareness can mean disaster, slipping on ice, losing your way, or missing subtle signs of changing weather. Staying awake, alert, and connected to every sense is the real challenge. You can almost hear the night whispering warnings in every crack and gust. Your muscles ache, your mind sharpens, and the vastness of the Arctic night presses in, reminding you that this journey is not for the faint-hearted. But somehow you keep moving, because turning back isn't really an option. The cold air sharpens your senses as you trudge onward, every crunch of snow beneath your boots sounding deafening in the quiet Arctic night. The herders' voices are low and measured, their conversations laced with humour and quiet wisdom, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, life is still lived fully. You catch a few chuckles exchanged over stories that seem to blur the line between legend and fact, a comforting reminder of the human spirit's resilience. One herder points out a flicker of movement in the distance. Your heart jumps. Predators are real here. Wolves and wolverines roam these lands, skilled hunters that can sense weakness. The Sámi respect these creatures, understanding their role in the ecosystem, but they also remain vigilant. Reindeer herds can't afford unexpected visitors, especially on a cold night when every lost animal counts. You learn that herders often use specially trained dogs to help guard the herds and alert them to danger. These dogs, sturdy and intelligent, have been bred for generations to thrive in this brutal environment. They are companions, protectors, and essential members of the team. There's a quirky story about how one dog once chased off a bear by barking non-stop until the entire herd was safely relocated. You smile, imagining a fluffy canine warrior in the snow. Historically, predators have been both a threat and a symbol in Sámi culture. Wolves, for instance, appear frequently in folklore, sometimes feared, sometimes revered. Historians still argue whether the wolves were viewed more as spiritual adversaries or as natural parts of the life cycle that the Sámi accepted with a mix of caution and respect. The night grows colder, and your breath forms little clouds in the air. You notice frost forming on your eyelashes and beard. Tiny crystals that catch the firelight and sparkle like diamonds. It's beautiful and brutal. A reminder that nature here doesn't compromise. You tuck your chin deeper into your scarf, trying to keep as much warmth in as possible. The herders pause for a moment, allowing the reindeer to rest and nibble on sparse patches of lichen beneath the snow. You watch as they carefully clear snow from around the plants, revealing the hidden winter buffet. It's a delicate balance. The herders must keep the animals fed without damaging the fragile tundra ecosystem. Overgrazing could spell disaster in these limited growing conditions. You recall a quirky fact you heard earlier. Reindeer have an extraordinary ability to digest lichen, which is toxic to many other animals. This unique diet is one of the reasons they're so perfectly suited to Arctic life. Scientists still debate the exact mechanisms behind this digestive marvel, but the Sámi have known and depended on it for centuries. The herders share quiet laughter and sips from thermoses of hot broth, the only sounds breaking the night's heavy silence. You're starting to understand that this journey isn't just about survival, it's about respect, tradition, and connection. The Arctic may be a relentless force, but here it's also a home. You glance up at the stars, feeling small but part of something vast and ancient. You realise that every step you take tonight is woven into a story thousands of years old, one of endurance, adaptation, and quiet courage. The journey presses on and you notice your body beginning to adapt, muscles loosening despite the cold, your breathing settling into a rhythm. The harshness of the environment forces your senses into overdrive. The crunch of snow, the faint rustle of reindeer hooves, the whisper of wind threading through bare branches. Every sound, every movement feels amplified in this frozen stillness. As you glance around, you see the faint outlines of other camps in the distance, small clusters of light breaking the night's vast emptiness. These scattered sanctuaries offer a reminder of community, an essential lifeline in a world that seems to stretch endlessly in every direction. You realise the Sámi herders depend on this network not just for practical reasons, but for emotional support during the long dark winters. You learn that these gatherings often include storytelling, song, and traditional joik, a form of vocal music unique to the Sámi. Joiking is not just singing, it's a way to capture the essence of people, animals, or places, a kind of sonic portraiture. Hearing the herders' soft joiks drifting across the snow, you feel a deep connection to the land and its people, as if the melodies themselves carry the memory of the tundra. It's fascinating how joik survives despite centuries of suppression. Christian missionaries once condemned it as pagan, and Sámi children were punished for joiking in schools. Historians still argue about whether joik's persistence is mainly cultural resistance, or a spiritual necessity deeply rooted in Sámi identity. Amid the music, you notice a flicker of movement, a lone fox darting across the snow, its red fur a bright splash against the white. The Arctic fox is a common but elusive creature here, adapted perfectly to the changing seasons. You hear a quirky detail. Their fur actually changes colour from brown or grey in summer to pure white in winter, a masterclass in camouflage that would make any spy jealous. You feel a sudden chill, not just from the cold, but from the isolation, the vastness pressing in on you. The Arctic night is not forgiving, but the Sámi know how to navigate its challenges through knowledge passed down from generation to generation. Their resilience is not just physical, but mental and spiritual. You reflect on the harsh realities of this life, how modern society often glamorizes the idea of living off the land without understanding the relentless hardships involved. Sleep is a trap, the cold a constant adversary, and every step requires careful attention. Yet there is also beauty here, a raw, unfiltered connection to a world most will never truly know. You wonder what you would do if you had to rely on this knowledge yourself. Could you handle the darkness, the cold, the silence? For now, you keep moving forward, wrapped in layers of history, tradition, and the stark reality of survival. The cold has settled into your bones now, a deep, persistent chill that no amount of movement seems to shake. Your breath hisses out in white clouds that dissolve into the star-speckled darkness, and your fingers feel numb despite the gloves layered over them. Yet the herders move with quiet assurance, their bodies honed by years of enduring this Arctic harshness. You learn that their endurance comes not just from physical strength, but from a profound mental resilience. There's an old Sámi saying, "The cold does not freeze the heart that loves the land." You think about that as you watch them work, calm, deliberate, intimately familiar with every nuance of the landscape and weather. The night air carries the faint scent of pine and smoke, mingling with the sharp tang of frozen earth and reindeer. You're reminded that scent is as much a compass here as sight or sound. The herders can smell the approach of a storm, the presence of animals, or the faintest hint of danger far before you notice it. You recall a quirky but practical detail. The herders sometimes use a wind compass made from sticks and feathers to gauge wind direction when the stars are hidden. It's a simple, low-tech tool but crucial for navigation in whiteout conditions, when the world can collapse into a featureless void. Historians still debate how early Sámi people developed these survival skills, whether they were inherited from ancestors who migrated across Eurasia or evolved uniquely in response to the Arctic environment. What's clear is that these traditions have been passed down with care and adapted over centuries. Suddenly, the silence is broken by the low, melodic call of a reindeer bull, a sound both eerie and beautiful in the stillness. It echoes through the cold air, a reminder that life persists here against all odds. The reindeer's call seems to bridge the gap between the wild and the human, the ancient and the present. Your thoughts drift to the challenges of modern life for the Sámi. Climate change is altering the ice and snow patterns, making traditional routes less predictable and sometimes dangerous. You hear that some younger Sámi are choosing different paths, moving to towns or adopting new jobs, raising questions about the future of herding culture. Historians still argue how these shifts will impact Sámi identity in the long term. Despite the uncertainties, the herders tonight remain steadfast, embodying a living link to a resilient past. You admire their quiet strength and adaptability, understanding that surviving the night on these icy roads requires more than just skill. It demands a kind of devotion. You glance up again at the swirling aurora, feeling a deep sense of awe mixed with exhaustion. The night is relentless, but so are you. Sleep can wait, survival cannot. The cold seems to deepen with each passing hour, as if the Arctic itself is testing your resolve. Your breath clouds in the air, freezing into tiny crystals on your scarf, and the crunch of snow beneath your feet feels louder, more pronounced, as if the silence around you is waiting to swallow every sound whole. The herders continue, calm and steady, guiding the reindeer with soft commands and gentle taps, their knowledge passed through generations like a secret language. You start to feel a strange mixture of exhaustion and clarity, the kind that comes from being completely present in a place where survival hinges on every decision. Your fingers are stiff, but your mind sharpens. Every sound, every flicker of movement is a clue. You notice the way the sled glides over the snow, the subtle differences in texture and resistance telling a story only the experienced can read. One herder points to a faint shimmer ahead. The ice is changing. Thin layers and cracks have started to form, almost invisible in the moonlight but deadly if ignored. You realize the roads are alive, shifting, breathing with the cold and stress of the season. It's a living map that requires constant attention and respect. You recall a historical fact. The Sámi have been using similar ice routes for over 1,000 years, relying on keen observation and experience rather than modern technology. Historians still argue whether the earliest routes were established purely for trade, or if seasonal migration drove their development first. Either way, these paths are more than roads. They are lifelines etched onto the fragile Arctic canvas. The herders skillfully adjust their course, avoiding the weakest patches. You hold your breath each time the sled creaks ominously, praying the ice will hold. The tension is thick, but the group moves as one, a synchronized unit bound by trust and necessity. There's a quirky detail that makes you smile. When the ice is especially treacherous, some herders tap rhythms on their sled runners, not just to test the surface, but to ward off bad luck, an old superstition that brings comfort. You think about how even the most practical traditions often carry a thread of the mystical. The wind picks up suddenly, howling through the barren trees and whipping snowflakes into a blizzard around you. Visibility drops, and you clutch your scarf tighter, your heart pounding. The herders light quick fires inside their lavas, their warm glow a beacon in the storm. You realize now more than ever that sleep truly is a trap here. To survive this night, you have to stay awake, alert, and connected to every instinct and lesson the land offers. The Arctic is unforgiving, but with the right knowledge and respect, it is also a place of profound beauty and strength. The blizzard rages around you, a swirling frenzy of snow and wind that turns the world into a white abyss. Your face is stinging with cold, and your vision narrows to the warm glow of the herders' lavu fires, flickering like tiny islands in a stormy sea. You feel your heartbeat quicken, not from fear, but from the raw exhilaration of being alive in such a wild place. You watch as the Sámi work quickly and efficiently, their movements practiced and precise. The fires are vital, not just for warmth, but for morale, a symbol of human presence amid the vast, indifferent Arctic. You notice how the flames cast dancing shadows on their faces, highlighting the lines carved by years of cold and sun. As you huddle close to the fire, the herders share stories, some old, some recent, tales of survival, humour and heartbreak. Their voices blend with the crackling of wood and the howling wind outside. It strikes you how storytelling is more than entertainment here. It's a thread that binds the community, a way to pass wisdom and keep the spirit alive through the darkest months. You learn that these lavu fires are part of a long tradition. The conical tents themselves, designed to withstand strong Arctic winds and heavy snow, have been used for centuries. Historians still argue whether the design was influenced by other nomadic groups like the Nenets, or developed independently by the Sámi. But what's clear is that the lavu perfectly suits the nomadic lifestyle. In the flickering firelight you spot small personal items, carved antlers, pieces of traditional jewellery and handmade tools. These objects carry deep meaning, connecting the herders to their ancestors and culture. It's a reminder that this life is about more than survival. It's about identity and belonging. You chuckle softly at a quirky custom. During these gatherings, some herders perform a reindeer call, an imitation of the animal's noises used to soothe and communicate with the herd. It sounds surprisingly musical, and is said to calm restless reindeer, a subtle art developed over centuries. Outside, the blizzard gradually begins to ease, the wind dropping to a whisper. You feel a tiredness creeping in, but the warmth of the fire and the company of the herders keep you alert. Sleep might be tempting, but you know it could be deadly out here on the icy roads. You glance up at the sky, now clearing, and the aurora reappears. Soft, shimmering waves of green and purple rippling overhead. It's a breathtaking reminder of nature's beauty and power, a perfect, haunting end to another long Arctic night. The wind has settled into a gentle murmur, and the sky above is a tapestry of stars glittering with cold fire. You feel a strange calm settling over you, a fragile peace in the midst of the Arctic's relentless challenges. The herders begin to prepare to move again, packing their lavu with practiced hands, every motion economical and purposeful. You notice how they handle each task with respect, not just for the material objects, but for the environment itself. Nothing is wasted, and every resource is treasured. It strikes you as a lesson in sustainability, something modern life often forgets amid its convenience. The snow beneath your feet crunches softly as the caravan sets off, the reindeer pulling sleds laden with supplies, their breath visible in the cold air. The animals seem content, moving steadily but not hurriedly, as if they too understand the delicate balance of this night's journey. You learn that reindeer herding is more than a job. It's a way of life that ties people intimately to the rhythms of nature. The herders read the land like a book, interpreting subtle signs in the snow, the wind, and the behavior of the animals. Their deep knowledge is a blend of observation, tradition, and intuition. There's a quirky tradition you hear about. Herders sometimes whistle or hum specific tunes to encourage the reindeer or keep their spirits up during long treks. These melodies have been passed down through generations, each with its own story and purpose. You can almost hear the faint echoes of those tunes carried by the wind. Historians still debate how the introduction of snowmobiles and modern technology has changed herding practices. Some argue it's made life easier but risks disconnecting the herders from their ancestral knowledge. Others believe it's a necessary evolution to survive in a changing climate. You glance at the horizon, where the first pale hint of dawn is beginning to edge away the night's darkness. The Arctic twilight is subtle and slow, a gentle shift rather than a sudden change. You feel a surge of respect for the patience required to live by these rhythms. Your muscles ache, but your spirit feels alive, carrying a mixture of exhaustion, awe, and gratitude. This journey through the icy roads with the Sámi is far from over, but for now, you relish this moment of quiet transition. The reindeer's steady steps and the faint hum of voices are a lullaby of survival and resilience, echoing through the frozen landscape as the new day slowly dawns. The early morning light filters softly through the frosty air, casting a pale blue glow over the snowy landscape. You feel a subtle shift inside yourself, a mix of weariness and renewal, as if the Arctic night's grip is loosening just a little. The herders press onward, their faces calm but alert, every sense tuned to the changing environment. You notice the way the snow transforms in daylight, revealing hidden textures and colours that were invisible in the dark. Ice crystals glitter like tiny diamonds, and the landscape feels almost otherworldly, a vast, silent cathedral of frost and light. It's beautiful but unforgiving. You learn that during these cold months, the Sámi often rely on the low-angle sunlight not just for warmth, but for navigation. The sun's position near the horizon creates long shadows that help mark landmarks otherwise obscured by snow. It's a subtle skill, learned over years of living intimately with the Arctic. A quirky detail surfaces. Some herders carry small handheld mirrors used to reflect sunlight into dark tents or to signal distant companions across the snow. It's an old-school technique that feels surprisingly modern in a world dominated by screens and gadgets. Historians still argue about the extent to which the Sámi adapted their clothing and tools in response to climate fluctuations over the centuries. Did they innovate independently, or were their methods influenced by trade and contact with neighbouring peoples? The evidence is complex, but the ingenuity of their adaptations is undeniable. As the caravan moves, you spot tiny tracks in the snow, those of lemmings, the Arctic's small but vital creatures. These rodents sustain predators like snowy owls and Arctic foxes, weaving an intricate web of life that the herders understand deeply. The Sámi respect all these connections, knowing that disrupting one strand can ripple through the whole system. The reindeer pause at a frozen river crossing, their hoofs clicking sharply against the ice. The herders carefully check the thickness and sound of the ice before allowing the sleds to pass. One misstep here could be fatal, a lesson learned the hard way many times over. You think back to the quirky wind compass and the rhythmic tapping on sled runners, reminders that survival here blends practical skill with cultural wisdom and a dash of superstition. It's a way to impose order and hope in a world that often feels chaotic and wild. Your body aches, but your mind is sharp, drinking in every detail of this incredible icy world. You feel a profound respect for the people who call this place home, whose lives intertwine with the land and its rhythms in ways most can barely imagine. The journey continues, a slow dance between human endurance and the raw forces of nature, unfolding under the endless Arctic sky. The sun climbs a little higher, though it still hovers low, casting long, crisp shadows across the snow. You find yourself moving in sync with the rhythm of the reindeer, their steady steps a comforting metronome in the silence. The cold remains biting, but the promise of daylight brings a fragile warmth, enough to thaw the edges of your numb fingers. You watch the herders as they pause to feed the animals, scraping away snow to reveal the lichen below, a critical winter sustenance. The herders' hands move skillfully, demonstrating a deep knowledge of the terrain and the fragile balance of the ecosystem. It's a dance of survival, where each action can tip the scales. You're told that reindeer have a remarkable ability to detect patches of lichen beneath thick snow, using their sensitive noses and hooves to dig down just enough without damaging the plants. It's a symbiosis perfected over centuries, one that humans have learned to respect and support. A quirky anecdote comes to mind. During severe winters, some Sámi herders have been known to play reindeer herding hide-and-seek with the animals, using calls and whistles to coax them back to camp. It sounds almost playful, a game played against the backdrop of one of the harshest environments on Earth. Historians still argue how much the introduction of snowmobiles has changed these traditional practices. Some claim it's eroded important skills and bonds with the land. Others insist it's a necessary adaptation that keeps herding viable in the modern world. You feel a deep connection to the slow, deliberate pace of this life. It's a far cry from the rush of city streets or the glow of digital screens, a world where time bends to the needs of nature and survival. As you continue, you hear a sudden distant rumble. At first, you think it's thunder, but the sound is too low and rolling, like the deep rumble of moving ice or distant animals. The herders exchange glances, their faces alert but calm. It's a reminder that even in this quiet world, surprises await. You wonder what other secrets this frozen expanse holds, what lessons it still has to teach those patient enough to listen. That distant rumble grows louder, a low vibration in the air that seems to pulse through the snow beneath your boots. The herders move with practiced calm, eyes scanning the horizon where the sound seems to originate. A slow, rolling avalanche cascading down a distant ridge, sending clouds of powdery snow tumbling toward the valley below. You feel the raw power of the Arctic landscape, a reminder that nature here is both ally and adversary. Avalanches, shifting ice, and sudden storms can wipe away paths in moments, demanding constant vigilance and respect. The herders have learned to read these signs, understanding the mood of the mountains as intimately as the behaviour of their reindeer. You recall the historical fact that the Sámi's traditional knowledge includes detailed weather prediction skills passed down orally through generations. These skills help them anticipate avalanches or storms, sometimes saving lives. Historians still debate how much of this knowledge predates written records, but its value remains unquestioned. The avalanche settles, leaving a quiet that feels even more profound after the thunderous roar. The caravan presses on, the snow softened but still treacherous underfoot. You watch as a herder tests the ground carefully before stepping forward, a practice that feels almost ritualistic. You're amused by a quirky custom. Some herders carry small carved figures, often animals or spirits, as talismans to protect against natural dangers. These charms are said to bring luck and safety, blending practical caution with spiritual belief in a way that feels both ancient and alive. The reindeer seem unbothered by the avalanche's distant fury, continuing their slow, steady march as if the mountain's outburst is part of the natural order. Their resilience mirrors that of the herders, a partnership forged through mutual dependence and respect. You reflect on the challenges of navigating such a volatile landscape at night, on icy roads that can vanish beneath shifting snow and ice. It's clear why sleep is a trap here. Any lapse in attention could mean disaster. As you trudge forward, your mind drifts to the future of this way of life. Climate change is altering the mountains, the ice, and the snowpack, disrupting the delicate balance the Sámi have maintained for centuries. You hear whispers of uncertainty among the herders, but also a fierce determination to adapt and survive. The night is long, the road uncertain, but the spirit of resilience burns bright. The landscape shifts subtly as you descend from the higher ridges into a frozen valley, the air growing heavier and the silence deeper. The reindeer move cautiously, their hooves tapping against the icy crust that sometimes threatens to crack beneath their weight. Your breath slows, matching the deliberate pace set by the herders who know every step counts. You become aware of how the cold sharpens your senses. The taste of the icy air, the crunch beneath your boots, the distant call of a snowy owl echoing through the stillness. It's a sensory symphony that both comforts and reminds you of the fragility of life here. One herder points out a strange, ancient-looking structure, partially buried in snow, a stone cairn built generations ago, serving as a guidepost for travellers braving these icy roads. You learn that these cairns have been vital for navigation since before written maps, a testament to the resourcefulness of the Sámi and their ancestors. Historians still debate the original purpose of some cairns. Were they purely practical, or did they hold spiritual significance as markers of sacred places or protective symbols? The mystery adds a layer of depth to the frozen landscape, hinting at stories waiting to be uncovered. You recall a quirky survival trick. When visibility is near zero, some herders use brightly coloured ribbons tied to poles or trees to mark safe passages. It's a simple yet effective method that speaks to the creative ways people have adapted to Arctic challenges. The reindeer suddenly pause, ears twitching as a faint sound drifts through the valley. A distant howl, low and mournful. You shiver, unsure whether it's a wild animal or the wind playing tricks. The herders exchange quiet looks, their expressions unreadable but serious. You remember reading that wolves have a complex relationship with reindeer herding, sometimes competing, sometimes part of the natural balance. Historians still argue how Sámi culture has evolved in response to predator pressures, balancing respect and protection. Your body aches, and the cold seeps deeper, but you feel a strange comfort in the rhythm of the journey. This frozen valley, with its ancient cairns and whispered echoes, feels like a bridge between past and present, a place where survival is woven into the very stones. You pull your scarf tighter and press onward, knowing that every step is a testament to endurance and the will to keep moving forward. The valley opens slowly into a wide expanse of frozen tundra, the horizon stretching endlessly beneath the pale Arctic sky. The air is still, almost reverent, as if the landscape itself is holding its breath. You trudge forward, your footsteps muffled by the soft snow, the only other sounds the steady crunch of the reindeer and the occasional clink of sled runners. You notice how the herder's eyes scan the vastness ahead, reading invisible signs, changes in snow texture, subtle shifts in wind direction, the faintest outlines of hidden ice patches. It's a mastery born of necessity, honed through centuries of experience and oral tradition. A historical fact crosses your mind. The Sámi have lived and herded in these tundra regions for over 2,000 years, adapting to the harshest conditions on Earth with ingenuity and resilience. Historians still debate the exact routes and timelines of their migrations, but their deep bond with the land is undeniable. There's a quirky survival technique you hear about. When crossing large snowfields, some herders carry small flares or brightly coloured markers to signal their position in case of sudden whiteouts. It's a practical adaptation that blends old-world knowledge with modern safety. As you walk, the temperature seems to drop further, and you can see your breath crystallising instantly. You catch sight of tiny snowflakes, diamond dust, that sparkle briefly before melting against your face, a delicate reminder of the Arctic's beauty amid its brutality. Suddenly, a reindeer ahead stops abruptly, ears flicking forward. The herders respond instantly, their voices low and calm, soothing the animals as they move around what appears to be a patch of dangerously thin ice. Your heart pounds. The slightest misstep here could mean plunging into freezing water. You remember the quirky superstition about knocking on wood or antlers before crossing uncertain ice, an old charm to ward off misfortune. Whether it's luck or skill, it seems to work as the herd safely navigates the patch. The long night stretches on and fatigue tugs at your limbs. But the quiet determination of the Sámi, the steady heartbeat of the reindeer, and the endless Arctic sky keep you moving forward. Every step is a lesson in patience, resilience, and respect for a land that demands both. The tundra's vast silence feels almost sacred as you press on, each breath shallow and steady against the biting cold. The herders speak in hushed tones, their words carried away almost instantly by the gentle Arctic breeze. You watch the reindeer navigate the terrain with a graceful surety that you can only admire from your shivering vantage point. You think back to the early days of Sámi culture when herding was less about migration and more about survival, gathering scattered reindeer herds through dense forests and rugged hills. It's fascinating to realize how this lifestyle shaped their social structures and traditions, crafting a deep connection between people, animals, and the land. Historians still debate the extent to which external influences, like the Viking trade routes and later Nordic pressures, altered the Sámi's nomadic patterns. Was the herding culture a deliberate adaptation or a necessity forced by changing political landscapes? The answer remains elusive, adding a layer of mystery to your journey. In the midst of the cold, you catch a glimpse of a peculiar tool hanging from one herder's belt, a traditional lasso made of twisted reindeer sinew used to catch stray animals. It's both practical and symbolic, representing control and harmony between human and beast. You grin at a quirky fact. The Sámi are said to have developed a special reindeer language, composed of whistles, clicks, and subtle vocalizations to communicate over long distances. Some linguists are still trying to decode this fascinating form of communication, highlighting the unique bond between herders and their animals. As the day edges toward dawn, the landscape slowly brightens, the stars fading to reveal a pale sky streaked with pinks and oranges. You feel the weight of exhaustion settle deeper into your bones, but the unyielding spirit of the Sámi and their reindeer keeps you moving forward. The icy roads behind you whisper of challenges faced and overcome, while the path ahead remains uncertain, a testament to endurance, adaptability, and the profound respect required to survive in this frozen wilderness. The first true light of morning spills across the horizon, softening the harsh edges of the frozen world around you. The Arctic sky is painted in gentle hues of lavender and gold, a quiet promise that the long night has finally passed. Your limbs ache, your breath still misting in the cold air, but a deep sense of accomplishment settles over you. You watch as the herders begin to prepare for a brief rest, unpacking small supplies and tending to the reindeer with tender care. Their faces, though weathered and tired, hold a calm satisfaction, a shared understanding that surviving the night on these icy roads is a victory in itself. The lavu is reassembled quickly, smoke curling from the central fire as the warmth begins to spread. You feel the comforting crackle of burning wood, the aroma mingling with the crisp scent of snow and reindeer musk. It's a sensory balm after hours of cold and exertion. You recall a historical note. These nomadic gatherings aren't just practical. They're moments of community renewal and cultural affirmation. The Sámi use these pauses to share stories, songs and laughter, reinforcing bonds that have sustained them through countless winters. A quirky tradition surfaces. During these rests, herders sometimes perform a light-hearted reindeer dance, a ritual to honour the animals and bring good luck. It's both playful and sacred, a vivid reminder that joy and survival walk hand in hand in this harsh land. Historians still debate how modern pressures, climate change, land rights issues and technological shifts will shape the future of Sámi reindeer herding. Will these ancient traditions survive, adapt, or fade away? The question lingers like the fading stars. As you sit by the fire, the world outside gradually waking, you feel a profound gratitude for this journey, a glimpse into a way of life that demands respect, resilience, and deep connection. The icy roads may be unforgiving, but they carve stories of endurance and hope in the heart of the Arctic. The night's ordeal winds down, the quiet hum of the fan-like wind outside mingling with the soft crackle of fire. You close your eyes, letting the memories of the frozen wilderness drift gently into dreams. The Arctic night slowly loosens its grip as dawn spills soft light across the endless snowfields. You feel your body relax, muscles loosening after the relentless cold and cautious steps. The silence deepens, gentle and vast, inviting you to breathe more slowly, to let the world's harsh edges soften. The flickering firelight from the lavu fades gently in your mind's eye, replaced by the quiet shimmer of snow and the tender glow of the morning sky. Survival here is more than endurance. It's a quiet surrender to the rhythms of nature, a deep listening to the land's whispers and moods. The icy roads, the howling winds, the steady reindeer footsteps, they form a symphony of resilience that lingers long after you close your eyes. The stories you heard, the traditions you witnessed, all weave together in a tapestry of human spirit woven tightly with nature's threads. Though the challenges of this frozen world are immense, the strength of those who live here shines like the northern lights, brilliant, enduring, and breathtaking. So, as your eyelids grow heavy and the Arctic night fades into a peaceful dawn, know that this journey is a reminder of how survival often means more than just living. It means belonging, adapting, and finding beauty even in the coldest of places. Now, rest easy, and let the quiet strength of the Arctic carry you gently into sleep, 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 you gently